I just want to say thank you to Bonfire for letting us film in this studio today. Go to bonfire.com.au for a free no obligation consult today. Welcome back to the Crooked Smile podcast. Today is a different type of episode. It is a solo episode. And normally in the past when we've done these solo episodes, it's been kind of, because Johnny and I haven't had any guests, so we've done a duo. I've done one solo in the past. It was way too serious. And I just want to say today's solo is not for that reason. Actually, I've got quite a lot of guests coming up for the show, which I'm really excited about, and we'll get into in a little bit. But I don't know, I thought it'd be good to kind of touch base around the podcast and how it's going and kind of just chat in general, and just before I go on this run of a lot of guests and a lot of one-on-one interviews, and just actually have a chance to speak a bit more myself, because as much as it's great to interview guests, which is the whole podcast basically, and the conversations with the guests, which is the style moving forwards, it'd still be good to check in every once in a while and have a chat. So I guess whether you're at work right now, you're in the gym, however you listen to your podcast, however you consume your podcast. Personally, I'll consume my podcasts while working from home basically on a Wednesday. It's kind of put on three or four podcasts throughout the day and really get into it. And that's why I release the podcasts on Wednesdays, because that's kind of the day I listen to podcasts. So I've always just kind of done that and that together. But I wanted to firstly talk about some of the guests we got coming on, and then in general to the audience, if there is anyone in particular, any deep dive topics or anything you guys are interested in that you want me to have on the podcast, please reach out and let me know, because I'm open to all feedback. But basically, recently I went on to Reddit, and I don't actually use Reddit very often at all. Actually, never. But I've set up an account on Reddit basically and put a message into the Reddit/Perth with 350,000 members of the group in Reddit. And I've just put on a message saying basically Perth podcast looking for locals with weird jobs, niche expertise, or wild stories. And then I've just put 2 paragraphs in, explain some context of some of the guests I'm looking for. And I've actually had quite a lot of interesting responses. I've got 72 replies on that and a few DMs on Reddit, which I'm still learning how to use. But there's some pretty interesting people in here that I think are going to be great to have on the pod. And I just kind of wanted to run through some of them and talk about some of the other ones, because some of the other ones are quite funny. But one of them in the comments, and I'm not sure if I'm going to have this guy on. Sorry if you're listening to this, but there is a bit of controversy in these comments around whether or not you are a legitimate degree holder or qualified person to be giving this advice. So, and I know your website doesn't say so, as someone pointed out. Thank you to whoever that was. Aquatic alchemy, what qualifications do you have, was his question, and it went on a rabbit hole. So we'll get into it. So this guy, Perth Nerd Therapist, has come on and replied to my invitation for guests to reach out to me, potential guests. And he's basically said he's a counselor and he's developed a model of Dungeons and Dragons to help for use in therapy. And he does training on therapeutically applied Dungeons and Dragons, right? And there's a lot of hype in these comments behind, we'll call this guy his Reddit username, I guess, Perth Nerd Therapist. And there's a lot of hype behind him. And then someone comes in and goes, well, what qualifications do you have? And he says, a degree in counseling and psychology. Aquatic Alchemy responds, oh, congrats. Which degree? And then he goes, not going to lie, seems sus that your website says you're registered with the Australian Counselling Association, but you can't be found through their site. You're not a psychologist, or you would be registered in the AFRA website. I'm just wondering what qualifies you to be helping people, especially teenagers with mental health issues. Anybody can call themselves a counsellor. So he's kind of come out firing at this Perth Nerd Therapist guy. And then he's responded with a bunch of verifications, and then the guy goes, well, what degree is this? And then he sends through a degree, but it's not clear because there's no actual certificate on his website or not. So I don't think I'm going to have this bloke on And plus, I don't really like Dungeons and Dragons. Fuck. But anyways, I've actually had some other ones. I'm a hooker who also works in the public sector. And then someone replied to this hooker saying, you get paid in both jobs to F the public, which was an interesting take. Reddit's pretty rogue. I've realized Reddit's quite rogue when going through it. Like there's all these weird group communities that you can join that have some pretty sus stuff on it. And some very, I want to say devious behavior and kind of devious actions, devious things, like some very there's like a swingers context is like a swingers community thing. And like, I don't know, I didn't realize that this was like mainstream, but then at the same time, it's like, it's Reddit. You don't have any sort of verification of if people are real or not, or if like they are who they say they are. So I don't even know if like this is even legit or if it's just a bunch of horny men just kind of like converging on each other, pretending to be women. Like as I said, I don't use Reddit, and like when I searched in Perth for the community stuff, all the stuff that was popping up were all these like sexual group communities, and I was very confused at first. And then I found the official Perth one where it's like just normal Perth people, which I put the podcast message in. So yeah, moving on, I've had some other interesting comments and replies for people wanting to come on, and a lot of them are really sexual, which is just really concerning. Like, I go to sex parties in Perth, does that count? And then someone starts questioning them on that, and then they go in depth on how they find all these parties. And I just like, I don't know of how comfortable I am as like my podcast message in this Perth forum being an avenue for people to go to sex parties. And then quite a few hookers have responded in this comment section asking to come on. Dare I say, I probably won't be having any of them on the podcast. I just don't know what we would talk about, Like, I think, like, not even going to comment on the industry itself, because who am I? You know what I mean? But I just don't know what value a conversation with someone in that industry is going to add to this pod. Look, if you're watching this and you feel a different way about it and you think I should have these people on, let me know. But I'm still probably not going to have them on. Actually, I won't have them on. But yeah, I've got some other interesting comments like, I used to work at cash converters and dealt with a lot of mad heads. I immigrated here from Scotland, been on the First Dates, the TV show, done a lot of psychedelics, into aliens and conspiracy theories, have a lot of random information on shite, was in a major car crash or two. I kind of sound like Shrek, and I'm always down for a good chat. That kind of does sound interesting, to be fair. Like, but at the same time, is that really a conversation I want to be having with someone that then gets shown to you? Like, are you guys going to find that interesting? Is basically what I'm getting at, is like the juice from that conversation going to be, is there going to be enough juice produced to fill the cup of a good podcast episode? Because if it's not worth the squeeze, then it's like, I don't know, I'm kind of wasting my time and yours, because it's like, also it's a complete stranger, so I don't even know if this person's real or whatever they're saying is real, because Reddit, right? But yeah, I don't know. And as much as I'm doing a solo pod right now, it's like, what value is that going to add? I'm liking the practice of talking to myself in front of a camera, just like to get better at podcasting, because I feel like this is going to make me better at podcasting. So yeah, I've got a few other ones that are pretty interesting. I'm a local actress, assuming like not in the sex industry actress, basically, is what I think this one is, who does a lot of interactive horror and murder mystery events as well as online streaming, and I'm currently studying for a film degree. See, that's interesting. I feel like that has potential to be a good podcast episode without being an actress in that other realm. Like, And then, you know, some people are so vague, like good timing. And with what's going on for me, I'd be happy as well also spread awareness of certain issues. Yeah, mate, you've commented that on my thing. I'm not going to like, I don't know what's going on with you. Like, I feel like in day-to-day life, people are so consumed by context within their own life that sometimes they forget to share the actual context when explaining things to other people. And I don't know, I find it really hard to keep up sometimes with people, like especially international T Force. Actually, no, this guy's DM'd me and sent me the stuff that's going on with his life. And he's actually been through quite a lot. And I might get this person on, but he has been to jail. So it's like, do I trust like getting someone in here that's been in prison and sitting across from them? And it's like, I'd probably have to get like the podcast assistant to come in and sit in on that one to like make sure everything's all right, you know? And like make sure that podcasting assistant is like, one of my friends is big and strong. So like I feel safe, you know, because this is a safe space, the Crooked Smile podcast. And yeah, I don't know about having ex-prisoners on, but that being said, if it is a good conversation and it is a safe episode and this person is reformed, then it could be very eye-opening and educational to you, the audience, and me, myself. Like that could be an interesting conversation. So it's kind of like I've got to do the vetting, right? I've got to get their Instagram, check it out, see what's up, and then stage the meet before the podcast if it's all vetted so far and going ahead. Not here, but at one of the coffee shops nearby before they like sign anything and come up. So it's just like that's the final check. Because I feel like in-person impressions are like it's weird. Reddit, you get nothing. Instagram, you can get a little bit, but like when you meet someone in person and have like a 2-minute conversation with them, you can tell if they're going to take your life or not, or like they're going to come into this podcast studio and stab you to death. Like, so that's basically the point of why I want to have the coffee before. Not even a coffee, just meet at the coffee place just to chat for 2 minutes before we come up, just so I know that I'm going to survive basically, and that I'm not going to be harmed because yeah, that probably wouldn't go down well with work. They'd probably be pretty mad at me if I died in their meeting room. I had a DJ request to come on, someone from FIFO. Another sex worker that would be keen did a doll face. Ugh. I know a guy that went 480 kilometers over the Mooney Bridge. His Nissan Patrol ate up a Lambo while it was in third. See, that sounds like an interesting story, but you haven't like, yeah. Reddit's a weird place. I'm here for it, for the guests, like, because I've found some pretty interesting people. Like in my DMs, someone's told me that they used to work as an evidence examiner in the district court for like terrorism, narcotics, child stuff, like, and they've seen it all and like the legal process behind it and innocent victims of like all that sort of stuff, which would be a very dark episode, but it could be very eye-opening as well. Yeah, so that could be potentially quite interesting to have on as a conversation. But once again, it's got to go through all the vetting. I've got to make sure this person isn't going to come in and like hurt me or hurt themselves in front of me. Like, yeah, that's the problem with Reddit is it's just like anyone can be on there, and it's just like the World Wide Web it's a little less vetted than some local celebs that I've got coming on soon that I'll talk about after this little Reddit deep dive that I'm going through. But yeah, this international tea guy that DM'd me that I was talking about, he's nearly taken his life twice, then gone to jail for aggravated armed robbery, and then come back and now gotten out of jail and rebuilding his life. And he's very open about it and talks about his background and how he had like money, private school education and all of that. And like, yet he still struggled and cracked under all of that. And now he's out and he's trying to turn himself around, his life around, but he's also he's got a lawsuit with a university at the moment. So, look, I got to ask my marketing manager, Lavissa, about this one because like, it could be a grey area on whether or not could be a good conversation. And, you know, ex-convict, like ex-person that's been in jail, like sitting across from me, I'd have to have other people in the room, you know, like that could be quite scary. But at the same time, it could be an interesting conversation, right? Let's see. I've had someone that does orthoprosthetics that's talking about worked in other countries where people have quite literally come into someone's house, cut off their... Why is Reddit so... Reddit's pretty messed up, you know? Like, of course, all of these stories are pretty cooked, but this orthoprosthetics person is talking about how they've worked in other countries and, like, there's been incidents where people will literally go into your house, cut off your arms and legs and steal them for the black market. And then that's like a victim that's then going to get the orthoprosthetics, and that's how this person's come into contact with them. But like, that's pretty wild, you know, and pretty heavy. Like a lot of these Redditors that could be good guests for the podcast. It's quite heavy stuff. So it could be good. It could be good. But at the same time, is that the angle I want to have where it's just like heavy stuff and conversations? I'd have to space it out, vet them, feel safe. I probably have to check with Bonfire Work to make sure it's okay for me to have these people because like, you know, I want to do the right thing by everyone that's helping me out, you know? So yeah, I've got someone that does shit posting on LinkedIn that wants to come on, and that could be interesting because this person like does some funny LinkedIn posts and like could be a good bantery chat with. Like that's kind of what you need after you've just talked about someone's arms and legs being cut off for the black market just randomly in some other country. Like after a conversation like that, I think it would be good to just talk about shit posting on LinkedIn. It probably would. It'd be a good yin to the yang in terms of episode balance. Here. Oh, someone who's worked at this one I want to have on. Someone who's worked in hospital mortuaries, like the morgue section of hospitals for like a decade and seen some shit like that. It's kind of dark, I guess, but that could be really fascinating and eye-opening. And they're also a funeral director for a few years. So that's something I want to have on the podcast. That would be like really cool. Someone's come at me and said, I have somewhat of a unique job in that we're not openly allowed to talk about it. Well, you're talking about it right now, but I'm a prison officer at the largest maximum security prison in WA. There's a lot of stories that come from that. So that's pretty wild. And I've said, well, if you can't talk about it, is it something we could do as a pod then? Like, because it would definitely be an interesting episode to hear about that. Once again, dark, but it's Reddit, so that's kind of expected. Person goes, if I quit sometime soon, I've got nothing to lose and I'll let you know. So that's a potential good episode, you know? Pretty cooked though. Someone sent me their EP as a DJ. I've got a DJ coming on in August. I'm very excited for that. A little preview, DJ Swirl. It's just getting on the map, but only up from it. This guy has got some serious potential and I'm excited to have that guy on the podcast. Anyways, I've got another guy that sent me some stuff, DJ stuff, so potentially having him or... See, I've got to really selectively not only vet, but strategically pick these people to schedule in around my current guest log of other people from Instagram and people I know. And like, because you got to have a healthy balance of strangers from Reddit with really dark stories, people you know, and Instagram celebrities, right? Because that's where the juice is. That's where the follower bases are, is the Instagram celebrities. I've got a few more messages that I haven't accepted. The Perth Nerd therapist sent me a message, but I'm probably not going to accept that because I hate Dungeons and Dragons. Sorry. Someone saying they're from America and they hate the Orange Man. Like, cool, sweet. Probably not going to have you on because, like, what are we going to talk about? someone that's a sales rep for a battery company. Hi, saw your post on our Perth. I'm a qualified surgeon currently training in trauma surgery at the Royal Perth Trauma Unit. I do lots of outreach on road safety with local schools, and we do lots of media bits and pieces whenever the news is looking for sound bites. I obviously wouldn't be able to talk about specific recent high-profile cases, but something like some of your recent guests, we could talk in length about the career outreach as well as our cases in the past and yada, yada, yada. My wife is also a doctor. She works in sexual health, mainly sexual transmitted disease. Oh, Reddit. Family planning and sex worker in health. You know, I've just seen this message. I'm going to accept it. This sounds unreal. I'd love to have you on. And then I'll send him a cheeky little Insta message. Are you on Instagram by any chance? It's a bit easier to message and call on there so we can keep things moving. My handle is @Crooked Smile Podcast. So I'll then send that. And then they can message me on Instagram, vetting, see some photos of them, communicate a bit better because I'm not really on Reddit. Like I've only just seen that message and that's from 3 days ago. Yeah, right. I've got a wild story that leads to drug and alcohol addiction, all the crazy situations I've ended up in, beating cancer, ending up in rehab twice, then eventually defying all odds and cheating death multiple times to finally get clean and turn my life around. Now I'm helping people in Perth the community do the same, would love to share. See, that's heavy but good. If this person was vetted right, that could be a really good episode. But with the approval of my marketing manager, Lavissa, and with some Instagram vetting, some vetting at the coffee shop, and maybe someone in the room for that one. Like this, that's an in the room one. But at the same time, let's get the process underway. This is a nice behind the scenes episode, I'm realizing. Like I'm kind of working on my guest outreach with you in a way. And you know what? That's kind of why I do it, you know? I podcast to be authentic. It's the Crooked Smile podcast. It's authentic. Crooked Smile, Campbell in Scottish, Cam, Buell, crooked/rye, Buell, mouth, crooked smile. And I didn't even know that when I started the podcast and had the name. So if that's not saying something, I don't know what is. All right. That's kind of where I'm at with Reddit. Interesting. I've never used Reddit before and I've created this account to just make this post. I tried to find some, I guess, for Star Wars. I really want to have like a Star Wars nerd lore fan on to talk Star Wars with. I think that'd be awesome to talk about Darth Jar Jar. But I outreached to a few of the communities, their emails, and they said they can't with licensing stuff. But I feel like you can talk about Star Wars pretty openly. I mean, you're allowed to talk about something. But anyways, I digress. That's Reddit. I've got quite a few wellness people coming on in August. One's traveling, one's been unwell. Pretty influential, I think. Some like fitness guys and like some mindfulness movement guys, and potentially a person that's lived in a cult, grown up in a cult, in an arranged marriage cult. And that would be really fascinating. If they can get the all go ahead to come on, I'd be super excited for that one. Keep your eyes out for that one in August. I just want to say a massive thanks to our sponsors for today's show, Proactive Health. Go to proactivehealthgroup.com.au for a free health newsletter where you will get weekly information on sleep, diet, and exercise with actionable steps and simple science behind it to improve your day-to-day life. All you need is an email to sign up and it's absolutely free. Go to proactivehealthgroup.com.au today. Look, I've also recently landed a huge guest for August. Is a local legend. I'm not going to name the name now. I'm building the hype a little bit for this person, but this person I am super excited for. They're not far away, if you know the reference. And I'm recording with them on the 23rd of August. I am really excited for that one. Like that's probably going to be like one of my most highly anticipated episodes, not even like publicly or promotion wise, just for me. Like this guy is an absolute local like icon, and to get this guy on and to sit down and have a conversation with one of the greatest minds, and I'm not going to give any more away than that, greatest minds and greatest speakers in Perth, who's on the up and new, like is not like decades old, like in the scene, but is new and on the up. Like, I'm excited for that. That's going to be great. So keep your ears, keep your eyes out and your ears ready to listen for that, because that will be end of August. End of August is going to be an interesting month. Touching base again with something else, I'm getting a nose reconstruction. Yeah. It's called a medical pseudophenoplasty. Not cosmetic, medical. I've actually got a really bad deviated septum at the top of my nose, and then the bottom of my nose, all the cartilage has been pushed over to one side. So they're going to need to fix the top of the nose, remove the bottom of, like, inside the septum, remove the bottom of the septum, straighten it out, put it back in. Overnight surgery, end of August, 2 days before my birthday. So I'll be out of action for a birthday that I'd planned to spend doing stuff, as people do with their birthdays sometimes. Some people don't. So yeah, that's going to be a big one. So I'm going to have to get in a lot of guests and a lot of eps before then. And then after that, I'm going to have a different nose. It's going to look different. Apparently, the structure of my right nostril, it will look like the left one on your screen if you are watching this right now as a visual watching listener. It's going to be a bit more structured, as in it's not going to be indented a little bit like it is now, I think. Yeah, and then I'm going to have some bumps higher up on my nose that make it look a little bit wider, but that's like a byproduct of the surgery that apparently some people cosmetically want to remove afterwards because they don't like it. But that being said, my nose is my nose. I'd rather it work and have a couple bumps like on the bridge around it, on the sides that kind of look a little out of place, but not really, and then breathe properly. Because right now when I'm sitting, I'm running, or I'm lying down, I struggle to breathe through my nose, and it's not great for my health because we're meant to breathe through our noses. So I'm excited for that. I'm excited for it to be fixed, but I'm not excited for the procedure and the week to follow, because apparently it's quite, you have shit in your nose, you can't breathe through your nose for a few days, like can't blow your nose for a few days. You can have some like things in your nose holding the structure right for a week or so, and then they get removed. So that's me touching base. I just wanted to touch base with where I'm at, where the pod's at. We've got some good guests coming in the future. I miss Johnny, but at the same time, it's kind of like I'm captaining the ship now fully, as in like I can book all the guests in. It's one less person to organize in the mix of it all. Don't get me wrong. Love Johnny, love doing duos with Johnny, but it is easier when there's less people who have to be available for a date. So that's a pro, is that now I can streamline inviting guests on in the future, and only 2 parties have to be available at a time, not all 3. So it's easy to streamline guests. This new studio from Bonfire is great, by the way. Every guest that comes in is super impressed. It's better than living rooms and like tax accounting studio, like boxed filed meeting rooms, and like, I don't know, the pod's feeling professional now, and the equipment's all good and working. It's nice when someone comes into an office as opposed to your house, as in like it's more professional. Like it shows that we're about business here at the Cook and Smile podcast, and that our production capabilities are, it's not just a bunch of cords in a living room for a guest to kind of tangle and weave through to get there. Don't get me wrong, there was a homey aesthetic, and it's nice to not leave your house to go to a podcast, but at the same time, it's like, it's nice to separate at the same time. So I am very, very grateful to Bonfire for letting me film here. The podcast is in a good place. It's going, good guests coming up, had some really good guests on lately as well. Next week's episode is going to be really good with a rehab counselor, which was really interesting. Great conversation with Chantel. She was Chantel. That was really good. Good to talk to her. That's going to be next week's episode. This week's solo first before all the guests come. And I don't know, I'm kind of like, I'm excited for the future of the podcast. I know these things are a slow burner. It takes a while. Like you got to get quite a few guests, and you got to get a big name to get lots of people on eyes on. You got to do socials, and I'm not great with the clips on the socials, but I'm going to get better. I'm going to start outsourcing some stuff and really just focusing on what I enjoy, which is finding the guests, researching and filming. Like that's what I want to do. And then the production stuff, which I'm doing all myself right now as well, I can outsource and it will be done better, to be honest. Like more time, someone that's better at it. It just makes sense. But at the same time, it costs money. So it's like, got to do it slowly. You don't have a lot to put into it at the moment. So, but as I eventually do, I feel like then it makes the podcast production better. More people watch it and then it'll be easy to get more sponsors and then you can make more money. And then I will eventually be able to grow the podcast then with bigger guests. And like, I don't know, I'm quite excited for that element of the future. I've also a bit of more behind the scenes context. The way I'm filming these at the moment, it's every second Saturday, and I am trying to get three guests, 3 episodes done that every second Saturday. So it's like 6 a month. And it means I only have to set everything up, which takes forever, twice a month for 6 episodes instead of doing 1 setup per episode. So to me, that's a win. That's a massive time saver. It gives me every second weekend free to then work on editing the podcast, other stuff, having some time off because I'm trying to balance a bit more. Anyways, that's enough about me. Let's get into some of these Q&As that I've put onto the Instagram. Not Q&As, but kind of like anything the guests wanted, anything the audience wanted me to discuss in this solo episode, because like it is good to hear from you guys. I know we're not very interactive at the moment, as in like there's not very regularly stuff to interact with on the socials or anything like that. And it's just like, I find a guest, I record the episode, I put the episode out, that's it. But like, it is good every once in a while to put like an interactive story on the Instagram and hear from people. So, sorry, I'm back. I had to take a phone call. I was about to get into some conspiracy theories that fans have sent in. Tinfoil hat warning. I don't even know some of these conspiracy theories and I've had to look them up to get information on them, but it could be a good, interesting conversation to quickly have to finish up this episode. Denver Airport, if you know who you are who sent this in, this is pretty niche to know this. So yeah, I don't know how many rabbit holes you've been down, sir, but Denver International Airport, DIA, has been a magnet for conspiracy theories since it opened in 1995. It was delayed by 2 years and ran $2 billion over budget, but that's not what makes it strange. The airport is decorated with bizarre murals depicting apocalyptic scenes, burning forests, gas-masked soldiers, crying children and animals in glass cases. There is also an infamous 32-foot tall Lucifer horse statue with glowing red eyes, which actually killed its sculptor when part of it fell on him during construction. Add to that the Masonic symbols, underground tunnels, and plaque referencing a mysterious New World Airport Commission that doesn't exist, and you've got a perfect storm for speculation. Some believe DIA houses massive underground bunkers intended for use by the global elite in case of societal collapse. Bunkers that connect to a web of deep underground military bases, DUMS acronym. Ooh. Others think it's a staging ground for the New World Order, the theoretical one world government that will supposedly rise after global catastrophe. Strange artwork is interpreted as predictive programming showing humanity's destruction and rebirth under a single materialized world regime. Airport officials have leaned into the rumours, posting tongue-in-cheek posters about underground lizard people, the Illuminati headquarters, which only fuels more suspicion. Whether it's just eccentric architecture or something darker, the symbolism and secrecy making Denver Airport one of the most enduring modern conspiracies. That's pretty niche. I'm not going to lie, I haven't heard of that one before. And I like to read into a good conspiracy theory and just like entertain it because it's just fun, right? It's harmless, you know. The 1998 World Cup final between Brazil and France remains one of the most bizarre matches in football history, not because of the outcome, but because of what happened before the game. Brazil's star striker, Ronaldo Nazario, widely considered the best player in the world at the time, suffered a seizure in his hotel room just hours before kickoff. He was rushed to the hospital and initially pulled from the starting lineup, but just before the match, he was suddenly reinstated. Brazil played poorly and lost 3-0 while Ronaldo looked lethargic and unrecognisable on the pitch. For years, the incident was shrouded in mystery. The Brazilian team gave conflicting accounts. The official story is that doctors cleared him to play at the last minute, but rumours swirled that Nike, Brazil's major sponsor, with millions riding on Ronaldo's image, pressured the team into letting him play. Some claim the match was rigged, possibly for political and economic reasons to let France win as hosts. Others suggest medical malpractice or a cover-up of a more serious health condition. To this day, there has been no transparent medical report. Ronaldo has said publicly that he felt like he wasn't in control of his body that day. A Brazilian congressional inquiry was eventually launched, but never got full access to medical records. Whether it was commercial pressure, medical negligence, or something deeper, many still see it as one of football's great unsolved mysteries. You know what? That's a nice conspiracy theory. It's not dark and heavy and about like satanic or rituals or people dying. It's just about a soccer player being unwell. And that's a lighthearted one for those who are following along at work, in the gym, or at home, depending on where you listen to your podcast. Very important topic. Operation Northwood. See, like, this is education. Sometimes you just got to know about these conspiracy theories. Operation Northwoods is a real... I haven't heard of this one, by the way. I'm reading this for the first time with you. Operation Northwoods is a real, declassified proposal written in 1962 by the US Department of Defense. It outlined false flag operations the US could carry out on American soil, hijackings, bombings, and even staged deaths, and then blame on Cuba to justify an invasion. Ideas included sinking refugee boats and staging attacks on US cities to manipulate public opinion. The document was approved by the Joint Chiefs of Staff but rejected by President John F. Kennedy. It only came to light decades later during investigations into CIA and military overreach. Which makes this so chilling is that it wasn't even a fringe idea. It was a high-level policy planning, and it shows that governments are willing to deceive, harm, or even kill their own citizens to achieve geopolitical goals. This theory acts as a gateway for many others. If something like Northwoods was considered in the 60s, what else might have been done since, and what plans are in place now? That's wild that was actually real declassified proposal from the Department of Defense even suggesting doing that. And it makes you think 9/11 was an inside job. I'm just going to put that out there right now. I didn't know about that one. Thank you for sending that in. That's actually quite interesting. I'll be honest. Like, I'd never heard of that. Maybe that's what they want for you not to hear about. Maybe it's been buried. Nah, that's pretty intense, Operation Northwoods. Go look it up and go have a deep dive. Yeah. This one I like. This conspiracy theory, if there was a conspiracy theory on this list to be an actual true theory that I believe in, I reckon it's this one. The moon landing was faked. And I'm happy. You know what? I'm going to go out on a limb here and say this. I'm happy to do a deep dive episode on the moon landing being fake, if there is interest for it. I don't know if you're still watching this far into the episode. It's been a long spiel, but I'm happy to go into the moon landing being faked and do a full deep dive presentation analysis on why it was fake, if you guys are interested, because if there's a conspiracy theory that is actually not a conspiracy theory in a reality, it's got to be this one. Like, I'll read the description, like the little excerpt for the theory, but I'm happy to do a deep dive episode on the Crooked Smile podcast. And don't call me a conspiracy theorist, because this isn't a conspiracy. This is a reality, right? The claim that the 1969 Apollo 11 moon landing was fake suggests it was filmed on Earth, possibly by famed director Stanley Kubrick. Now, there's a lot of suspicion around this and his next movie, Eyes Wide Shut, speculation. We can do it in a deep dive. The motive? To beat the Soviet Union in the space race and restore American prestige without actually risking human lives on the moon. Sounds like a feasible thing. And after the recent one we just talked about, Operation Northwoods, this is so much more harmless, to be fair, than Operation Northwoods. And if they're proposing stuff like that, I can rationalize this one being real. So, Believers point to anomalies in the footage, shadows that don't align, the flag waving despite no atmosphere, and the lack of stars in the sky. NASA claims these are all explainable through physics and camera limitations. Another argument is that we've never gone back to the moon since, despite having far better technology today, which seems suspicious. The theory, while widely debunked by scientists, still holds cultural weight because it reflects deepest distrust in institutions. Whether or not you believe it was fake, the real conversation is how much do we trust the stories we've been told and what's possible and what's not. That's crap, that last little bit of that description. But I don't know. Like, they recently did some footage from the moon and like the quality was worse than 69 and they couldn't even live footage it, yet they were able to do it 50 years ago. They had better technology for live streaming 50 years ago. And there's the video of where like they leave the moon to come back, and it's like the camera's like moving on the moon. I don't know the depths of this part, but it's like almost looks like a cameraman standing on the moon filming them leave. Like they left the cameraman behind, sort of thing. Like, yeah, that one I actually think might actually be fake, and I'm willing to do a deep dive on it if it interests you, because to me that's not a conspiracy theory. Tinfoil hat off, that's real. Okay, last conspiracy theory for the day, and look, I don't know much about this last one, right? I don't know much about this last one, but it's pretty fascinating and I have seen some stuff on it before and it makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, who knows? This is a speculative conspiracy. Fuck. I'm just here doing conspiracy theories on a podcast by myself. This is... At least it's authentic. Crooked Smile. Titanic and the Federal Reserve. Okay. The Titanic sank in 1912, killing over 1,500 people, but some believe it wasn't just a tragic maritime accident. The theory goes that financier JP Morgan, who funded the Titanic, had several business rivals on board who opposed the creation of the US Federal Reserve. This included John Jacob Astor IV, Benjamin Guggenheim, and Isidor Straus, all of whom died. Morgan had booked a suite but cancelled his trip last minute. The Federal Reserve was established the following year in 1930. Some theorists believe the Titanic was sunk on purpose and that it wasn't even the Titanic, but its damaged sister... I haven't even heard of this part, but its damaged sister ship, the Olympic, sent out in its place for an insurance scam. Others claim the ship was destroyed to eliminate opposition to a centralized banking system. See, I've heard the second part, not the first part, that JP Morgan wanted to centralize banking and all the most wealthy and rich people in the United States were opposed to that. And then he put them all on the Titanic and they were like skeptical of going on the Titanic, but then he booked a suite as well for the Titanic. So he was going to be there. So like, oh, if he's there, we'll be fine. And then he didn't hop on last minute and then they all died. So the coincidences, the cancelled trip, the deaths of prominent financial opponents, and the birth of the Federal Reserve are enough to fuel a century of speculation. Yeah, okay. That's it for conspiracy theories. That's a lot of reading, a lot of nutty conversations, but some of them, maybe they're not conspiracy theories, maybe they're real, who knows. Thanks very much if you have listened to the end. This has been my second ever solo pod. And like, yeah, last one was very serious about a year and a half ago, maybe. Yeah, about a year ago. And it was very serious, different point in my life. Less experienced podcasting. I like this one a lot more. So that's progress. I'm enjoying the pod a lot at the moment. Like the actual, I'll be honest, I'm not enjoying the effort it takes, as in like it's a lot of things could be streamlined and done better, but I am enjoying the way it's now set up, the structure moving forwards and the guests I'm having on, which is the important part. So I'm guessing the podcast is going to be good moving forwards, because if I'm enjoying it, I can put more energy into it. It can be a better finalized product for you guys to consume, and the guests will be very interesting and very good to listen to. And yeah, I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at the moment. If there is any recommendations for deep dive subjects or things you want me to talk about with guests about myself, please let me know. Just shoot me a DM on Instagram at Crooked Smile Podcast. That's where I respond to the majority of stuff for the show. I'm not very responsive on it, but I check it about once every 1 to 2 days. So message me there and we will go from there. If you're watching this and you're a guest, you're a potential guest who thinks your niche, industry, profession, hobbies, interests, or things you could talk about would be worthwhile, send me a message and I'll book you in. Probably September, hey? Pretty booked out at the moment. But yeah. Thank you very much for watching to the end if you have. Can't believe I've made this an hour long. But I love you.
And I can never ever. If you get lost, I press the rewind so you don't see nine. No, I can tell that you a winner. I'm making key lime cause I was living in the backseat till you begged me. All my niggas never playing games like we bad street. When she's talking, feel like poetry in motion. And I feel like I'm chosen. When she look at me, I'm getting lost up in that ocean. Everywhere emotion. They ain't got a notion. I wanna tell the world.